Greetings, hellos, and whatnot, people. Recommend videos I should react to, but apparently the collective minds of the Linux community have been lost because Ubuntu will replace GNU core utilities with Rust, and I'm like, don't Linux people love Rust? Like, there's a massive debate right now about Rust in the Linux kernel, and Linux users have been getting their thing hard for that reasoning and for that happening, but when Ubuntu does, I don't know, we have to watch the videos from Internet Outlaw. Before that, comment, like, subscribe, join my Discord. You can go in there and you can request a good old video that I can react to if you want to.
Earlier this week, Ubuntu announced plans to integrate Rust-based implementations of essential system utilities, starting with the upcoming Ubuntu 25.10 release. The plan is to use programs from Utils, which has got to be the biggest rewrite it in Rust project ever in terms of how prolific it could become if experiments like this one that Ubuntu will be conducting are successful. The core utils like ls and cp are used on every Unix-like operating system out there. So
again, the core utils, get it. The core functions of the OS. Not functions, but the core methods you can call or functions you can to do operating system stuff. I'm trying to keep it simple, people.
Servers, firewalls, embedded devices, Macs, Linux, Android, and every smart whatever.
Oh, I think Macs purged GNU stuff because of the TPL license. It was not compatible with the way that Apple do business. That's why we are using the ZSH terminal. I'm almost sure that they purged any GNU stuff from their system back a few years ago, but I could be mistaken. Anyone know that? Dibble it down below.
Is using these programs under the hood. So replacing these essential tools that the world has depended on for decades with Rust rewrites is both interesting and really terrifying. So the goals that usually drive a Rust rewrite, or just choosing to write something in Rust to begin with versus another language, is for it to be blazingly fast and memory safe. Now, to GNU's credit, their implementation of the core utils actually has a really amazing track record with security and hasn't had that many major vulnerabilities discovered in it over the last 20 years.
So again, key point here is they are not massive solutions, okay? What they are doing, yes, they are talking low-level stuff, but they are not super complicated. Like, it's not like I will venture and say that your Office suite, like LibreOffice, is probably more advanced than DFS or LSF, or because these core utils, you think about them a little bit. Again, I am super oversimplifying here, but they are small little programs that are packaged together into a big package. But the thing you have to keep a mind of, and this is what I'm telling anyone, is that just because it has not happened don't mean it can happen, and also don't mean that you should not be vigilant against it. So I'm talking about that he says that they haven't found any major bugs or security problems and stuff like that. That don't mean that you should assume that it's safe. Never assume anything is safe or secure. That's the biggest mistake you can do. If you think you're the most secure and safe person on Earth, and you're running around naked on an island, you take a shit and a snake bite you in your ass, and you're... How safe are you, buddy? Why did that snake bite you in the ass? Because you thought you were the most secure and safe person on Earth, so you did not think about that, oh fuck, there's also other creatures, on this little place than just me, so maybe I should not running around naked and swinging my dick in the air and taking a poop just wherever the fuck I want, because something could stab me.
But there have been memory bugs in core utils like split as recently as last year. And if it had been written in Rust, there wouldn't have been a heap-based buffer overflow bug in it. And sure enough, if we read the disclosure on Ubuntu.com that goes into the reasoning, the enhanced resilience and safety that is more easily achieved with Rust ports are what's most attractive about it. Now,
so, okay, Rust is a good language. I don't mind Rust. I don't like the Rust community. But Rust is a good language for stuff like this. People should be like, what are people saying about Linux? Move to Linux. It's secure. It's stable. Ubuntu is actually making strides to make it even more stable. And it's the same with like the CPM with Windows, everyone's bitching and moaning about how insecure Windows is. And then they implement CPM for security reasons, and they're like, oh, now I can't use my old unsecure computer. But didn't you just talk about that you want Windows to be more secure? Security is an inconvenience, people. Security is all about, if it's inconvenient for you, it's inconvenient for other people to get into and stuff like that. Get what I'm coming at here.
Now, while the article didn't list performance as the primary driver for rustifying or oxidizing, as they say here, the author does bring up an interesting point about performance and also reliability by saying, if foundational software fails, so does all the other layers built on top. If foundational packages have performance bottlenecks, that becomes a floor on the performance achievable by the layers above.
They are making a super good argument. I have to say it. You can hate or love Canonical or whatever. They are making a super good argument. The only people I can see going against this argument are people that just want to be upset for being upset.
If these core utilities can get faster, then everything else can get faster. And the speed is one of the primary focuses of the UUtils project. Now, in a lot of cases, the core utilities probably won't get much faster because of writing them in Rust, because one of the big speed advantages that you actually get over C or C++ is that in Rust, multi-threading is typically much easier to implement, especially in a safe manner.
Yeah, that's also what I got from it. So I am starting to fuck around a lot with the threading in C#, and it's good. I also fucked around with threading in Python, which is, it's there, it's okay, but it's simple. But Rust has a super good compelling argument when it comes to, like he said, multi-threading and security and stability.
But a lot of the tools in the core utilities don't actually benefit from being multi-threaded or parallelized in any way. For example, MV, CP, and RM are all file system tools. And since disk I/O is fundamentally serialized, there's not much point in them being parallelized. But there are huge opportunities for the few core utils that can be run in parallel. And that's why when the lead developer of UUtils did a talk at FOSDEM this year, he did a live benchmark of the UUtils implementation of the sort command against the GNU implementation, because sort is one of those programs that actually benefits from more threads. And
yeah, so again, if you have a piece of software and you want to make it either more stable, more secure, or faster, there are part of that software that are not going to benefit more from you doing it, but there are other parts that will. This is just, well, there are some software where if you rewrite it from, let's say, Python to some other fucking programming language, and depending on if it's only have one task to do, that whole software could probably be super fast. You have a collection of tools that is in the state they are now. They have, let's just say they've reached their potential limit of speed, if you're talking speed. Then you can rewrite them, and let's say 5, 10, 20% will get a speed bumps, the rest will be where they are. So let's say you're going from a car that can run 30 miles per hour to get a car that in certain instances now can run 45 miles per hour. Why would you not do that if you have the time, if the investment in time and development makes sense? Why would you not do it? Why would you not want that extra speed performance in the workloads where that speed improvement actually matter?
The UUtils implementation was 6 times faster than GNU's. So you can imagine
that's impressive.
The gains that something as basic as faster sorting is going to bring to basically every other program that's running on higher levels on the operating system. Now, Ubuntu isn't just going to all of a sudden pull the familiar core utilities from under their users' feet.
Of course, that will make no fucking sense, and almost nobody does that.
Instead, they released this oxidizer tool which lets users and developers seamlessly rustify and unrustify their core utilities on their Ubuntu system so that they can get used to how that's going to work before Rust actually becomes the default. And you can download this right now to your Ubuntu system from GitHub, or you can install it with Cargo, but you should still be careful with running this because it could break your system. I mean, it's making a very fundamental change to
True, yeah, you need to. Again, I keep saying this. Anytime you go in and fuck with the back end of anything, you need to be careful and you need to know what you're doing. In my almost 30 years with Linux and 30 years with Windows, more than probably 30 years with Windows, I started fucking around with Windows when I was like 10 years old and helping people. You know what the main reason for them coming to me was? They fucked up in places they should not be in. Like, if you go on to forum, Reddit, if you don't have a life, and you see about all the problems people have, most of those probably it's not because, Linux fucked up randomly. It will happen, but it's not the vast majority of cases. People think they know what they're doing. They watch a video, they go in and they fuck around in a config file or in places they should not be in, and copy pasting command or moving files around because this YouTuber did it. And therefore, he must be, or she must be an expert, and therefore now I'm an expert because I've watched like 2 seconds of it. And then everything breaks and they can't fucking they can't fix it again. And then they go and yell and scream in forums for help. And again, if it's for learning purposes, that's how you learn. But don't do this on production machines on your main machine.
How things are working. So make sure that you have a backup. But by default, if you run this with the basic enable command, it's going to replace coreutils and sudo. Enabling all experiments is going to replace...
Replacing sudo will be good because sudo have had a lot of security bugs and a lot of fucking memory bugs and whatnot.
Coreutils, sudo, findutils, and diffutils, and make them the default on your Linux system. So far, I haven't broken my Ubuntu VM with Oxidizer, but again, be careful if you have important data on your system. Now, of course, the Linux kernel itself has been progressively integrating Rust into it, with initial support merged in version 6.1 and ongoing developments to include Rust-written drivers. Linus Torvalds has also shown support for Rust, especially by his usual metrics. And so there's a lot of support for this language in the Linux world. And one of the biggest upsets here, I think, is really to GNU, because if Ubuntu succeeds with utils and other distributions start to follow suit, then GNU Linux won't really be a thing anymore.
Also, who gives a fuck about GNU Linux, okay? The GNU part of Linux is an important part of some distributions, like I said, it gives the core utilities. But it's such a small part of the OS, of the combined OS. The kernel is more important. Like we see that right now. They're changing the core utils. They're not changing the kernel. The kernel is more important than GNU. And calling it GNU Linux is just, again, one of those mind-boggling, self-righteous, egotistical bullshit that Richard Stallman wants to do. For one, I actually like not using GNU tools. I don't like the Free Software Foundation. They are a politically driven company that cares more about Marxism, politics than they do software. I have a video, see if I remember to link it down below, that's called Linus Torvalds versus the Free Software Foundation. In there's an interview where Richard Stallman, word for word, say that he'd rather have you run the most insecure, or not the most, but run insecure, unstable software if it's GNU license versus running any other licenses that's more secure and more stable. Right out of his mouth. And the reason for that is political. He thinks he can change the political landscape of the world with software. You can't. I don't know where in the world that taxes and inequality, bigotry, if you want to go that route, racism has been solved with software or software license.
And it would really be a shame if GNU got dropped from Linux before they're even able to finish their own kernel, because without...
They never are. They've been working on that kernel for so fucking long. They never going to... Just... They don't have a good mission statement. It's the best way I can say it. And they are focusing efforts in the wrong places. They should just shut their fucking mouth about politics and start working. But they don't want to do that because it actually takes effort.
Without a kernel, you can't really call yourself an operating system.
True.
And while most people, besides GNU developers, are probably welcoming this rustification of the core utilities in Linux, there are some people that absolutely hate
There's always some people.
this change. And it's not just people that prefer C and C++ who hate the syntax of Rust so much that reading it makes their eyes bleed and hear.
It's actually not that bad. It's just like learning a language that's more verbose, if that makes sense. If you know what I'm talking about, you get it. You just have to. I call it magical spells. So you have to say a lot of magical words to get something done. So again, if you do Python, you do print, brackets, quotation marks, whatever you want to say. In C#, you do console.writeLine, I think it is, brackets, quotation marks, what you want to say, and the what is it called, semicolon or bracket or whatever the fuck, or just like doing C. I can't remember what the fuck it's called. So the console.writeLine and the print is the magic word that you think like, write your ass print. You know, it's just like, it's the magic words that you're telling that you have to say to get it to do stuff. And in typical, the more magic words that you have to say in front of what you want to do, the more control you have over that thing.
Hearing Rust evangelism sounds like nails on a chalkboard to them. These people are always going to be around whenever you mention Rust. But I think the real big concern here with UUtils is its software license. So this Rust implementation of
that's the thing I was talking about.
The core utils has an MIT license, while the GNU one, of course, has a GPL license.
Who gives a flying fuck? Here's another thing I will say. Unless you are actively part of those two, the core utils development or the UUtils, the Rust util development team, you have no right to tell other people what license they should use for the work they are doing. I will say it again. Unless you are directly involved in this work, it's not your place to tell them how to do their fucking work. You want something for free? Just shut your fucking mouth and get what they give you. You can bitch and moan about instability, security risk, not working bugs and stuff like that. But don't tell them how to do their work. If you want to tell them how to do their work, become part of the work or pay for it. Because that's one of the benefits we get from paying for shit. We have more rights over what we are getting. You get more consumer protection, you get consumer rights when you are paying for shit.
And by the way, I might as well mention that GNU's implementation of core utils isn't the only one in existence. Okay, BSD has their own, BusyBox is another, Apple has another, Unix had another, but GNU's GPL license on their code is where the real big deal is here, especially for low-level programs like this. So the general public license, or GPL, is copyleft. So you can think of it as doing the inverse of what a copyright does, which restricts the ownership and control over some intellectual property to an individual party. GPL makes things free, as in freedom forever. So if you took GNU and you built upon it, you'd have to open source your improvements if you wanted to distribute them. You could.
And I hope he says that, but BSD MIT license is allowed, or the GPL, it says that they acknowledge it as being an open source or allowed or recognized license.
Could technically use GPL code and make proprietary modifications and then just use it on your own system. But if you want to distribute it, it has to be open. And this prevents proprietary software in the form of binaries or encrypted or heavily obfuscated code from being added to.
However, we have to remember one thing here. The freedom that they are talking about here, again, in sense of freedom, not zero price, it means the freedom to modify, redistribute, and look at the code. All of those things are things that nobody benefits from other than developers. That's it. You as a consumer will not benefit from it. You will not get a better or lesser of Linux if everything was proprietary. The only difference here is that some hobbyists like me or you could not look at the code and learn from it. Could not look at the code, modify it, and build our own version of it. So that would mean that if, let's just say GIMP was totally proprietary and people didn't like GIMP, they couldn't just easily fork it and make a new version of GIMP. But who are the people doing that stuff? Who are the people that are, oh, I don't like this software, it's going in a direction I don't like? Who is taking that and forking it? Not the end user. It's developers. The thing with the TPL, if you think about it, it's not a consumer-friendly, well, it just happens to be consumer, but it's not meant to be a consumer-friendly license. It's meant to be a developer-friendly license. However, that developer-friendly approach happens to then also benefit the consumer. Because I could take GIMP or make a version of GIMP that's one-on-one compatible with GIMP, binary compatible, and I could say you have to pay for it. And you would say to me, stupid idiot, why would I do that and get GIMP for free? So what TPL license software do, they then tend to charge you for services, expertise, stuff like that. Basically, the software in of itself, they give that to you for free, and then they are billing you for the associated products, the associated services that are associated with that free product. So they're giving you, basically the first one is free and you pay for the rest kind of thing. Like, yeah, you can use it for free, but if you want people that really, really understand the software to help you out, pay for it. If you want to have guaranteed uptime, stability, security patches, so and so, pay for it. That's how most server OSs are run. And the main reason for that is kind of like a byproduct of the source code being open, is that why should the consumer pay for something they can get for free? And companies know that. They know that they can't just say, oh, Linux, you have to pay X amount of money for Linux. They have tried that in the past and it never worked. Because if it's Ubuntu-based, you just take Ubuntu, implement the same fucking changes they did, and now you have that distribution. The software license has nothing to do with stability, efficiency, or any of that fucking sort. If Linux became proprietary tomorrow, don't mean that it will end up being less secure, less slow, or less fast, or less customizable. Just can't see the source code. And who gives a fuck about the source code other than other developers? So therefore, the license is a no fucking concern unless you are a developer. That's where it makes sense.
A GPL codebase. But an MIT license does not prevent this. It's perfectly legal to take MIT licensed code, which would be open source, and then make fantastic improvements to it, or integrate it into a small part as a much larger code base, and none of the changes or additions that you made in these cases would have to be open source.
Yeah, that's ultimate freedom. The TPL, in my humble opinion, is not about freedom in any way, shape, or form, because it dictates what you can do. The MIT license basically is not a license. I think the license is something like you just have to credit the author and that's it. You can do whatever the fuck you want. There's no guarantee. You have to credit the author. You can do whatever you want with that software. Whatever the fuck you want. It's not dictating anything. The TPL, however, has certain rules you have to follow, just like a proprietary software. Certain things you have to do, just like a proprietary software. But they are hiding it in the form of, well, openness and freedom. And it kinda makes sense, if that's what you want. If your viewpoint is that everyone should be able to look at all the source code in the world, well, then you have to force everyone to do that. But it's still a dictation. You're still dictating other people what to do. You're just hiding it with the form of, oh, we know what's best for the collective development. And that is if all code is open. Almost every dictator on Earth think they're doing what's best for the people. They think that they know what's best for the people. They think that if they are massacring hundreds of millions of people, that's for the betterness of the country, of the organization or the place they live in as a whole. So someone has to sacrificed in their eyes, even if they don't agree and stuff like that. You get what I'm coming at here. So what the TPL wants you to sacrifice is trade secrets. Nowadays, a lot of trade secrets, a lot of businesses would not exist if the code was open for everyone to see, because their whole business is the code. You can look at the stock trading applications that use elaborate algorithm, mathematic formulas to predict stock outcomes and stuff like that. That's their whole business. Let's look at guiding systems for military weapons. I don't want the fucking Al-Qaeda to be able to hack the fucking nuclear missile or get the source code from it and then have as efficient missiles as we have in the West. I don't want them fucking having that, or ISIS, or I don't even know if I can say those. There are, situations where businesses that are super important for the society and employs thousands of people could not exist if they were all GPL. So having an MIT license basically said it is, get it as it is, there's no warranty, and you have to credit the author. That means that you have spent potentially thousands of fucking dollars, hundreds of development hours into fix something, add something, whatever it is you're doing, have the freedom, the power to do whatever you want with that work. You don't have to give that massive amount of work, those massive amount of money basically that you spend on it for free to someone that have not done it. Freedom means that you have the freedom to do something I don't agree with. That's freedom. You should be able to say something I don't agree or do something I don't agree. Because if not, then we are living a dictatorship. Then people that think like me, we are dictating how you should job, how you should speak, what you should do, etc., etc., etc. At best, it's censorship. At worst, it's dictatorship. And again, the GPL at worst is a dictating license. At best, it's a censorship license. None of those things are good. So just think about that a little bit.
Even if you wanted to distribute them, and it could be the case that your changes are so popular that they basically end up replacing the original open source program in popularity.
That's what you... If you get shit away from free, that's what you get, dude. That's part of it. You can't fucking, be entitled when you do stuff like that. You just have to accept that. That's the reality of it. You just have to accept it. Again, that's ultimate freedom. That's this is merit. It's merit-based shit. This is how it should be. If I'm doing something and someone is doing it better than me, should I get pissed over you hiring them instead of me? But I was the first one doing it. This is like, that mindset is like entitlement times 1,000. Then become better. If someone is doing it better than this project, you become better. That's how you win. You want to know how Linux can become the most popular desktop in the world? Become better. Become better. Because if Linux really was the best operating system on earth, everyone would be using it. It's so fucking simple. Everyone is debating about what is the best thing. Okay, what is the most used thing? This thing, the best thing. Why are you saying that? It's the best thing for most people because most people are using it. Is it the most optimized? Is it the fastest? Is it the most secure? No. But if most people are using it, it's the best thing for most people. It's the thing that makes sense for the most people. AKA, it's the best thing. Gaming. The most powerful console on the market has almost never been the most popular console. Why? Because they didn't have the game for, or the software, or whatever you call it, that people want. So for a lot of people, it was not the best console. It was the most powerful, but not the best console because it didn't give them what they want. So Linux is not the best OS because then everyone will be using it. Even how Microsoft could be fighting so much that their fucking balls dropped and they became teenagers again. They could not stop Linux. If the consumers want Linux, they get Linux. If the vast majority of the market found Linux to be the best OS, they will get Linux.
And since proprietary software is a kind of evil in itself...
No, it's not! I like this video up till now. Up till now, this video was a good video. That means that if Linux become proprietary tomorrow, it's just evil. Linus Torvald is Epstein. Linus Torvald is fucking this dude now. No. Licenses is not evil. It's how they are being used. And who determine or dictate how they're being used, the people. That would be like saying all games are evil. Because we have EA, we have Blizzard, we have Activision, Activision, Blizzard. You get what I'm coming at here. Microsoft, the gaming studios, that go around and do super anti-consumer fucking things. So that means that all games must be evil then. Because some games do evil, some games are anti-consumer. Can you see how low IQ this thinking is? You are blaming a product for the actions of its masters, the puppeteers, that is the humans. There are plenty of proprietary software you can get for free that takes no telemetry, that takes no data, that are wholesome fucking developers, that will engage with the community and will, allow you to help them out and stuff like that. There are plenty of those out there.
Because the end users don't have any control over it, you could argue that MIT and similar licenses allow for good open source software to be more easily turned into something that
you have no control over open source software as an end user either. Because you need to understand the fucking software. Even if you're a developer. If you're a developer right now, you can have 100 years of development experience. Do you have more control over the Linux kernel because you're a developer and you can read the source code? No. Because you probably don't know what the fuck is going on. It'll probably take you months to read through all the source code in Linux kernel to understand what's going on. And understand it to a degree where you can actually fix and do something about it. You have no control over any software if you don't have the knowledge. And let's be honest, most people don't have the knowledge that the end users, the consumers don't have that knowledge. Most of them don't. So for them, the license is mute. It's nullable. It's a nullable variable. It don't mean anything. It's in the ether. It's in the void. They don't give a fuck. What they do give a fuck about how good is it, does it do what we need it to do, what is the price, is it free, is it not free? That's what they give a fuck about. I really fucking hate the mindset of Mental Outlaw. Because he does have a lot of good, he has a good head on his shoulders. But then he goes into this kind of religious speech where a license is bad, is evil. No, it's not evil. This is something that Richard Stormer say because he don't want that philosophy on Earth. He wants total control over the source. This is something people say to the opposite side just because it's on the opposite side. A license cannot be evil. It can be restrictive, of course. It restricts your access to the code. But it's not evil. That's not being evil. It's not going around and fucking castrating cats or something like that. It's not taking your firstborn. Open source is not evil either. No license is evil or good. They have benefits and negatives, but that's not being evil. That's just God damn it.
that is going to abuse end users.
It's not... Jesus Christ, man. How... Okay. What is a proprietary software that I'm using? It's Steam. Steam is a proprietary software. Why the fuck are you guys gaming on Linux with Steam? What the fuck is wrong with you? Are you fucking batshit crazy? You're supporting the fucking neo... Jeez. Are you fucking mental? We just... Because Daddy Mental Outlaw here said that proprietary software is evil and abusing the end user. Why the fuck are you using Steam then? Steam is abusing the end user, by the way. But why the fuck are you using it then? There are plenty... Hey, here's another thing. Why are you using VLC? It takes telemetry. And collects data. Ooh. Why are you using any web browser? They, to some degree, take telemetry data. It's just some take more than others. But they all do. Why are you using them? A lot of them are open source. There's a lot of freeware, free for personal use proprietary software that do the exact same thing as a lot of open source software. Meaning they don't take telemetry, they don't take personal data, they don't do all that fucking shit. The software that is abusing the end user is because the powers that be of that software is telling it to do. Are we putting cars in jail for drunk driving? Are we putting cars in jail for running people over? Are we putting guns in? Are they locked up because are we taking the gun and putting that in jail and letting the human go? Yeah, your gun just had a bad night. It was fighting with its bullet girlfriends, and one of the 30 or 10 bullet girls just got super angry, just left the fucking barrel without you doing anything, and it didn't have to hit your fucking wife right in the fucking face. I know she's been a bitch to you the last 2 years, but it's your gun fault. It's just magically fucking pointed itself at your wife, and then its wife number 9 got super fucking angry and just exited the household because it didn't want to be part of the gun's collected family. So we are going to put your gun on trial. We're going to lock it up, but you're free to go. You can just, there's a lot of other guns in the sea. You can find another relationship. This is basically the argument that they are making with proprietary software is evil, and it will abuse the end user. We are blaming an anonymous or we're blaming an object for the actions of the humans. What a fucking if that was true, Bill Gates is the best fucking person on earth. Bill Gates did nothing wrong.
And this has already happened with Minix. So this was another Unix-like operating system that was developed by Andrew Tannenbaum, and it actually predates Linux by a few years. And Minix
more than a few years, but yeah.
This was initially proprietary software that was conditionally source available. I think maybe you could get the source code if you were in university, because initially Minix was created to be a teaching tool.
And that's why it was proprietary in the beginning, because, well, universities, I think this is Amsterdam. Universities, they tend to, I don't agree with this, but they tend to sometimes lock down intellectual properties if they think they can make money off it or sell it and stuff like that. American universities do this more than anyone on earth. Okay? This is a practice that American teaching institutes more than anyone on earth. My opinion is anything that's being done or fucked with in a university should always be open. Meaning, if you are software, if anything software-wise coming out from a university and or learning institutes should always be source available. Pick the fucking license you want, I don't care. Because other people learn from that code. You cannot have intellectual properties or patents and stuff like that if you are a teaching place. And again, American universities are notorious for doing it. Just look at how many fucking patents and licenses MIT has and Boston Dynamics or Boston universities, stuff like that. It's stupidly crazy. But a lot of universities will do this. I don't agree with it.
But anyway, in the year 2000, almost 13 years after Minix first came out, it was officially open sourced under a BSD license. And the reason for this was commercial viability. So as you can imagine, a lot of companies don't actually want to open source their code, or they don't want to open source whatever changes they made because they don't want their competitors to get it because they
yeah, why the fuck should I give my fucking competitors an advantage to get me out of business? It makes no fucking sense.
think it gives them a competitive edge and yada yada.
Yeah, you're just disproving it. Like you say, it don't fucking matter. It does.
And so they're wary about using anything that is GPL. And this pretty much sums up Tannenbaum's reasoning too for using the BSD license for...
Yeah. Why would I give? If I'm Microsoft and I'm doing something that I've spent millions of dollars on, why would I give that to fucking Oracle? If we're talking server-side shit. Why would I give them something that could put me out of business and thousands of people will lose their money? Or sorry, their jobs. Thousands of people will lose stock money and stuff like that. People will be set out on the streets. Why the fuck would I do that? Why would I do that? Why would I allow someone else to outcompete me with my own fucking work? It's the most stupidest thing on earth. And then bitch and moan about I don't have a fucking business. If I don't want a business and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck, I'm doing this for the betterment of the community, of the world, and blah, 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 blah. I don't care if you make a business out of it, I just don't have that interest, fine. That's what you want. If you want to do that, that's fine. But if you're running a business and you have to like it or not, but you have to account for shareholders. You also have to somewhat account for your fucking employees, like you kind of want them to still have a job, or else you can't do a product. You kind of have to do things so your competitor don't fucking outcompete you. Why do you think it's so, I'll not say difficult, but why do you think that most Linux companies are not like Microsoft-sized companies? Think about that.
For Minix, but this openness allowed Intel to integrate Minix code into their Intel management engine, which is basically a mini operating system that...
Yeah, but here's the thing, dude. If Intel came to the University of Amsterdam and said, can we get a favorable license to use that code in our Intel system, they will gladly have paid it. Developers do this all the time. Developers pay a lot of money on licenses for third-party fucking components so they can run their business. That's why I just port Photoshop over to a GPL and run on Linux. You know how many licenses that they are paying for to run Photoshop, for example? They can be using hundreds of third-party licenses that they are paying for to be able to do what Photoshop is doing. And they can't open source that because that's not in their hand. So if they want to open source Photoshop, they now have to go to the people that they pay licenses to say, well, we want to open source Photoshop. So either we make a copy of your software or do our own version of what your software do, or you go GPL also. And all the GPL guys just got a massive boner right now. You see how fucking complicated and inefficient that is ending up being? The way he talks is entitlement. He feels entitled to other people's work. Other people that are spending thousands of hours on doing something, he feels entitled to. It should be open for the world. No. It's not your fucking work. If I'm building a birdhouse, you are not entitled to anything that has to do with... I can give it to you for free if I want to. You're not entitled to it. I can set a high price and you say this is too much and you can walk away. That's your prerogative, whatever the fuck you want. A lot of this sounds like entitlement. Because Intel would have been paying for a license. And you know what they would have done? It would have gotten away from to the consumer, and the prices of the CPU may have gone up 1%. A lot of people say, oh, well, Windows computers are so expensive because we install Linux on, or Windows on them. You know how much Lenovo and Dell pay for a Windows license? About $10. We did this research on a live stream. I should watch my live stream because we do that kind of research. They buy it in bulk and they pay around between $5 to $12 per license, depending on how many they buy. So when Lenovo on their websites is giving you a discount of $200 or $150 for not choosing an operating system, it's not the license that you're paying for. You're paying for the automation process it takes to install their version of Windows and validate that it's installed. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for Windows. You're paying for the production line automatically installing Windows and all Linux. I think Linux costs like... It depends. Here's another thing. Depending on how pro your computer is, a Windows Pro license costs more on a T or a X1 Carbon than it does on an E series. How can that be? Why is a Windows license more expensive or some version of Lenovo? I can't remember, but I would see, because I just bought a new laptop. I went through the whole fucking Lenovo page. There is, depending on what computer you buy, the license or what you pay for Windows is more on some than others. Windows license is the same fucking price. And that's because on Lenovo's website, you don't pay for the license. You pay for the work they put in to make a custom Windows version, installing it and validating it. That's why on some computers it costs more than others, because they have more exotic software. Therefore, they have to do more special work to make that ISO or whatever the fuck you would call it. There may be some more validation things they have to go through to make sure that it works when it comes to the end consumer. Like, it is so much easier to just put the hardware together and ship it out, than put the hardware together and then install Windows on, because they have to boot up Windows to see if it works. They can't just be like, we think it works. You have to test it. It goes through testing. So why they are giving you money savings by not charge or wanting an OS is all the work they have to do to put that on the system and test it. It's not the license that costs that much. Because why the fuck is it different from computer to computer then? A Windows license is a Windows license. Windows 11 costs the same as if I'm installing it here, or on a server, or on a laptop, or on a fucking Intel machine, or an AMD machine. It's the same fucking price for the license. It's the work that they had to put into getting that to work.
That runs on every Intel chip alongside your real OS. And because of this, it's technically one of the most used operating systems in the world.
I think AMD is taking over the market share of CPU.
And if you read Tannenbaum's open letter to Intel, he obviously is not super happy about the way that Intel went about this, mentioning that they should have at least given him a heads up about his OS becoming the most prolific one ever. But again, that is not a requirement of a BSD or an MIT license. You don't even have to say thanks.
You see the entitlement coming out of his mouth there. Proprietary software is evil.
To the person who originally developed that code. So this could lead to more excellent operating systems being poached for diabolical reasons in the future.
It could, yeah. It could. I don't fucking know, but it could, yeah.
By major corporations. But what do you think? Are the fears about the MIT license overblown?
Yeah.
Is Rust in the core utilities?
This is a big nothing. Who gives a fuck? This is a big who gives a fuck. This is something only fucking inbred, lockdown, basement crawling, never showering nerds give a fuck about. Not even developers give a fuck about this in the grand scheme. The only time developers are going to give a fuck about this is if they are working with it. The end consumer, this is not going to impact the end consumers of Ubuntu one fucking bit. One fucking bit. They are not going to feel it. Probably feel the speed improvement and security or memory security aspect of it. But if you're running Ubuntu today and then in 5 years you're running Ubuntu with Rust core utils, you will not notice a fucking shit. You will not give a fuck about it. Mac users used Bash in the past, now they're using ZS8. All the same command. More or less. There's like a few that don't. But did that like ruin the whole Apple fucking company? No. Whether people being like, I'm not using Apple products anymore because they're not using Bash. There are probably like one or two out there in the fucking forest with a fucking dildo or butt plug up their ass. But most people don't give a fuck about it. And then what he and a lot of people are angry about is that this gives the possibility of people putting a lot of effort and work into it and either sell proprietary it and stuff like that. Basically, they feel entitled to other people's work. And I always felt that being a bad thing. I am not entitled to anything you do. If you do some work and you want to give that away for free, or you build something and you want to give that away for free, that's your decision. Unless I am paying you for it, or unless I am helping you out. Then I can say, like, you know what, I'm 50% of the work. Either my 50% has to be giving away for free or open to the world, or why don't we do all of it? A lot of open source advocates, or free software, or FOSS advocates, don't give a fuck about development. They don't give a fuck about the license. What they do give a fuck about is that, oh my god, I may have to pay for this shit. Oh my god, I can't just go on to a repo and do sudo apt install software name anymore. That's what they are most concerned about. They have a massive entitlement towards the software that they're using. And then they're using the excuse of, oh, it's for the betterment of the world, it's for the freedom and openness of the code. All of that only matters if you're a developer. And if you are a developer that are going to either zip through the code, audit the code, or use that code for development. Again, a lot of developers. C# is one of the most used development languages in the world. One of them. I think Python is take Python. The most used development language on Earth, right? There is a lot of proprietary libraries you can use, and there's a lot of open source libraries you can use. And a lot of them do the same thing. Some do In some instances, the proprietary do it better. In some instances, the open source do it better. Do you think that most developers that want to develop a software, they sit and be like, we should use the open source version because it's open source? No, they figure out which one is doing the best job and they use it. That's how they're doing it. Unless the license of that library is going to impede on the license they are building the software around, which most of the cases it won't be. Software licenses has never been a consumer issue, problem, or concern. It's a developer thing. The GNU people, just for some fucking weird reason, have morphed it into being something that they have not forced, but gaslit or whatever you would call it. What is Mozilla Firefox doing right now? What is Mozilla doing with Firefox? They're doing a lot of things that a lot of proprietary companies are doing. It's open source, peeps. You're telling me that just because it's open source, it can't do bad things. What the fuck is Firefox doing right now? Some ordinary gamer just made a video that I reacted to about this whole thing that basically is a nothing break because they've not done anything yet. They've just put in the wiggle room that they can do shit that is anti-consumer if they want. It's an open source software. So you're telling me that open source software can be evil. This is why I honestly feel you should not listen to Mental Outlaw, because he starts out great and then all of these fucking weird ass fucking religious speech, like it's like they read a fucking book. Almost all people that are pro GNU and stuff, like they say the same shit over and over again. It's almost like word for word that they all are saying it, and that sounds suspicious a lot like a fucking cult or a fucking religion. When it's like the same rhetoric being spoken over and over and over and over. It's the people we should go after. Microsoft will become a better company than any Linux companies if the people that ran that company were wholesome people. If I proprietary VLC tomorrow, if I had that power, would it start to take telemetry? Or let's say OBS. Would that start to take telemetry? Would that start overnight? I say, you can't see the source code anymore. Everything's proprietary software. I will now go and hide in bed and get all fucking wanker. And then tomorrow, all the fucking user data has been collected on some server somewhere that I've never fucking fucked up or set up. And it just automatically there's just a JSON file with just all the user IP addresses and how much porn there was the last 5 days and stuff like that. That's just automatically happened because I made it proprietary. This is how it sounds like. No, it would only happen if I was the owner of OBS did it. That's the only reason it will happen if the human does it. And yes, you can't see the source code anymore, so you can learn from it, but you can also not make a competing product. I would love to know how much source code do Mental Outlaw look at in a week? How much does he fix a source code? How much does he fix? I said that fix a source, but how often does he do anything with the software he used in a coding manner and give it back? How often does he do it? How often do you do that? Because those are the places where the freedom and openness of the source code actually fucking matters. So if you're not doing any of that, the software license is more or less meaningless to you. Besides, you may have to now start actually paying for the shit that you're using. Which is another thing. What's free for you, someone else has paid for. So when you're using something that's free, either you are the product, which a lot of people love to say, we are not the product on Linux. That's cool. Then you are using something. I have paid for you to use it because I've donated to some open source project over the years I've been using. So basically, people like me, or companies like Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, Siemens, Volvo, they are the reason why you can use it you're using, because they are paying for the infrastructure. They're donating so they can have an infrastructure. One of the biggest financial beneficiary to OBS is XSplit. That's a proprietary company. Logitech is one of the biggest donators or supporter, money-wise, OBS. Without them, you could probably not have OBS today. Or it would be a lesser product today. So all of these proprietary companies you hate and all that fucking shit, they are paying for you to get your entitled fucking software that you feel entitled to. and you are yelling and screaming and berating them. But without them, you would probably not have the software you have today, because you are not going to pay $100, $50 for a license to run OBS. You are probably not going to pay $30, $50, $60 for a distribution of Linux. But that's where we go to. If you want to have total ownership and total control over the software you use, you either become part of the development team or you have to pay for it, because they need to pay the developers. They need to pay for the infrastructure. They need to pay for the marketing, blah, blah, blah. If you're not going to do it, someone else is. And then you sit here and you are entitled. You feel entitled that it has to be free and open, so I can just really do with it what I want, without you doing give anything back to the community and letting other people fix your shit, pay for you to use it, and then you sit there and be like, I don't like the name. Nope, wrong button color. Nope, wrong license. I'm going to make a big fuss out of this. How fucking entitled does that sound? Anyway, this has been a super long video. See you all later. Bye-bye.